Things started this afternoon. We are here to talk about ensuring quality in your online courses, and it's an introductory webinar type of workshop to quality matters, which is something we'll talk a lot about as we start the session, and then we'll talk more about that, how we can ensure it in our online courses. My name is Tracy Miller, and I'm the online teaching coordinator at the Northern Illinois University's Faculty Development and Instructional Design Center. Many of you have tried this already, but I'm going to add it to the screen now. If you'd like to self-check-in, try out our check-in at factdev.nau.edu. And I will add that URL again into the text chat area. And that will allow you to self-check-in yourself. I will be looking at the list of participants, and if you have any difficulty, I can go ahead and check you in too. But let's get to what we are actually talking about today, and that's online courses and how to make your online courses a more quality course. So when we're discussing online courses, who do you think quality matters to? And just add your answers into the text chat area. Students, absolutely. That's what we're all here for, right? Who else might this matter to? Teachers and students, absolutely. Everyone. Well, that covers it, doesn't it? Absolutely. Faculty, administrators, thank you, Melanie. They want to know that their courses are quality. Accrediting bodies, excellent answers, everyone. And I think you'll see most of those answers are what I anticipated your answers might be. I also added a couple more that we really think about because NIU is a state college, and that's our legislators and our taxpayers. They all want to know that our university courses are all quality, and those include those online courses. So I think kind of get it right by saying everyone. I would even say maybe parents of students coming to the university. They want to know that their tuition dollars are going towards quality courses. So that's why this topic is really important to all of us, and I'm sure that's why everyone is really interested in learning more about it this afternoon. Okay, so we know who might be interested, but why do we want quality online courses? Why does everyone want quality courses? And of course, the first one has to be to improve student learning and student success. And that also goes hand in hand with improving student retention, which is so important in higher education right now. We want a quality online course so that students stay with us, and they want to continue the course, and they want to continue their program. A quality online course, a well-designed course, can also prevent cheating, and I think that's something that we definitely have concerns about when we start kind of this online learning adventure. It can definitely promote interest in the content. So I know that at every course that you teach, you know, you have an interest and a passion for, but that can also be translated in an online course if you kind of incorporate some of these quality guidelines, I'll call them. And then it can promote lifelong learning. A lot of things are happening online now, and a good quality online experience in school can help them foster some of that passion and lifelong learning. So when it comes to online courses, how do we define quality? How do we measure quality? And then how do we evaluate quality? Because I think all of us have some ideas in our heads about what a quality course looks like, maybe what a quality online course looks like. There's certain things, maybe even as a student, that we've decided made the course better for us, more practical, more easy to follow along with. But how do we really define it in a real way, and then measure and then evaluate that quality? So again, those, especially the last one, measuring and evaluating our quality, those accrediting bodies want to know how we've gone about doing that. And so that's why we decided at NIU to introduce Quality Matters as our sort of our standards for how we are defining, measuring, and evaluating quality online courses. So take a moment to read through this. I'm going to take a moment to make sure that I've got everyone checked in, because I see some new folks have come in, and I want to make sure I don't miss anybody. I keep seeing new names. I'm so glad everyone's here. Okay, so what is Quality Matters? First of all, Quality Matters is a nationally recognized set of standards in online course design. It's considered a faculty-centered peer review process, and it's designed to certify or kind of evaluate that quality of online courses, or any online components in your course. And so it's really important that to Faculty Matters and to us that we take this approach, that this is something that comes from the faculty, and that any of these evaluative processes are a process of peers. And it's also a set of tools and standards for designing and reviewing online courses. So if you don't have a course to sort of be evaluated and reviewed for quality standards, you can use these tools to even start your design. And to me, it takes the form of almost like a checklist of things that you can accomplish to really ensure that your courses are quality. Quality Matters has these 4 underlying principles, they called them, and I'm not sure if it just happened naturally or they were trying to be clever, but they came up with these 4 C's. It's really meant to be a continuous process. It is a process. It's something that's cyclical. You always want to kind of tap in and improve your courses, and make improvements. Nothing's ever sort of finished. It's always in kind of like, again, in that cycle of continuous improvement. It's centered in a couple different ways, both in research. All of these standards are based off of research and studies that individuals and organizations have done over many years. It wasn't just a group of people that got in a room and said, okay, I think this is what we should do. It's really based on research. But it's also based on student learning. So it comes from the perspective of a very student learning approach. And I think that was one of the things we said that was really important, that it's all about improving student learning. It's very collegial, that faculty-driven, fear-driven, that sounds horrible. Where did I come up with that? Faculty-driven process. It really alleviates fear, which is what I think I was getting at, is that they know it's coming from a safe process from their peers that are sort of in the trenches with them. And it's a very supportive environment. And then collaborative. It's meant to be a process between a perhaps a course designer, an instructional designer, faculty that might have developed the course in the past, or faculty that are going to be developing the course, and all of these folks become this collaborative team in really defining, measuring, and evaluating what quality is in a course. So I'm going to take another breath as we kind of absorb all of that, but there are many things that go into a quality course, and here are some of them. There's the course design. How is it put together? The delivery. How is it actually taught when the course is unfolding? How good is the content that you're using? Is the content up to date? The learning management system or the course management system. Here at NIU, it's Blackboard. Other institutions, by the way, welcome. We do have some folks from other institutions with us today. You may use a different course management system, and that can really affect the quality of the course. The university infrastructure, what are all the other things that are going on besides the courses? How's the admissions process? How are the student support units? Again, can affect the quality of a course. And then the last two, are the faculty ready for this, and are the students ready for this? So here's just a list of things that can all influence the quality of an online course. Quality Matters reviews only address the course design. And so at least for the next 45 minutes or so, we're going to be talking specifically about course design. In some cases, we'll slip over into course delivery a little bit, or what I call the actual teaching of the course, because there definitely can be some gray areas for those. We do have a series of workshops that are specific on quality online course delivery. We start with a similar webinar as this one, where we kind of go over things real generally, and then we kind of break it up into more chunks. So if you do have any questions on what a quality course delivery is, look for those other webinars, but of course I'll be happy to answer them quickly for you here too. Quality Matters is not about the individual instructors. So it's not a performance evaluation. It does not measure the individual instructors' ability to teach online. As a matter of fact, when course reviews are done, a course shell is created, and in some ways you really can't see how the instruction has been designed into the course. So it's not a performance evaluation in any way. It's more about the course quality. In many cases, courses are now being designed and developed by perhaps one faculty member and then delivered by another. So it really has to be based off of the course quality and not about the faculty who are evaluating the course. And it's not a pass-fail test. It's a diagnostic tool. And so this is a way for the designers and the developers to be able to look for different instances of quality in an online course. But like we talked about before, it's a continuous improvement process. So anything in a quality course that's being reviewed that may not be to the standard we're looking for. It's just that it hasn't been met yet, but we're going to work collaboratively together to get the course there. I see Janet's just joined us. Welcome. And finally, it's not about creating the perfect course. Quality Matters looks for courses that are better than average, or what they've determined and the course reviewers have been determined to be at an 85%, a B plus, basically. And that's really gets back to that idea about continuous improvement. There can never be a perfect course. There's always things that can be tweaked and improved upon. And so, again, we're not looking for perfection, but we're definitely looking for better than average. So here's how the Quality Matters process works. In its official capacity. It starts off with a course. So we're going to look at the top here, and we say that we're going to be looking at a particular course. They're looking for a mature course, one that's already been taught, maybe worked out some of its kinks. Again, you could use it as a process to design a course yourself, or again, use those checklists to kind of see if you're meeting those standards. But in an official Quality Matters review, we're going to be looking for a mature course. And then the course is going to be reviewed using a rubric. It's a very dense rubric. We're going to be unpacking that very shortly. But the course is going through a review process, again, with a course representative and some peer reviewers, so other online teachers that have taken professional development to be a peer course reviewer. They're going to be reviewing the course over a number of weeks. And then they're going to be giving some feedback to the course representatives, the course developers. And if the course has already met expectations, then it's going to go through this sort of quicker arrow here where it's met expectations. In some cases, again, the course has just not met the standards yet, so they're going to get some great feedback from the reviewers. And then there's going to be a course revision process where the instructional designers and the course representatives will be able to make those revisions. And then again, they're still eventually going to meet these expectations. And then the loop is continued back up again, just because, again, it's a continuous process and there's always improvements to be made. So that's the process, the Q1 Quality Matters review process in 60 to 90 seconds. Again, there's lots more to learn about Quality Matters. I will give you some information at the end of the session on how you can come to our all-day Applying the Quality Matters rubrics training. And that's training specific for faculty and instructors at NIU. Sorry to the teaching assistants and our folks outside of NIU, but this is an opportunity for just for our faculty and instructors here at NIU. But what does Faculty Matters mean at NIU? First of all, there's no mandate university-wide to have your courses reviewed for quality. Right now, it's more used as a guiding standard for course design. It's something we're just kind of kicking off and coming to online workshops like you are today. This is to help you out in your quality design, not necessarily to tell you that you have to have your course reviewed. So again, it's completely voluntary. It is the minimum quality standard for the Division of Outreach to promote your courses. They have a list of courses that have met at least the essential standards at NIU. Again, just if they're going to put it out there and promote it, they do want to make sure that it's met this minimum quality standard. And then it's also been something that's really a growing community of faculty committed to quality. online courses. Each time we offer this session and the sessions that are kind of companion sessions to this one, we are growing that community of faculty. If you click on the silhouette at the bottom and see the individuals that are here in this session today, they are all part of this growing community of folks that are learning more and more about the quality standards that we are trying to achieve here at NIU. So let's break down these 8 general standards of the Quality Matters rubric. And I think you can agree as you read through them that they all really make sense. I think maybe there's some apprehension when you first hear about these standards, that there are going to be rules to follow. And then as you sort of read through them, they just really make sense. I hear that time and time again from faculty and instructors that I talk to. So the first one is all about that the design is clear, that it's very intuitive for any new instructor, for the students that are joining the course. The second one's going to be about learning objectives, making sure that they're clearly stated, again, for those maybe different faculty that might be teaching, or definitely for your students. That the assessments are aligned to learning objectives and explained to the students. We don't get a chance to necessarily have those dialogues with the students when we meet them face-to-face, like when we're in an online course. So we need to make sure that that's happening in an online course. The instructional materials and resources align with the objectives. You're going to hear this word align sort of over and over again in the next half hour or so. It's one of the founding kind of caveats of the standards is that that they really work together, that they can be a really great assessment or a really great instructional material, but if it doesn't address those learning objectives, those things that you want the students to be able to walk away doing, somehow something's kind of missing the point here. We want to make sure that, number 5 here, that there's opportunities for meaningful interaction. Online courses are meant to foster interaction between you and your students and the students with each other. And it can come off as really passive and isolating, and so the interaction is really important. We want to make sure that the technology we use supports the learning and does not sort of get in the way of learning. And finally, that we provide support for our students in real ways, allowing them maybe just technology support or even support in writing. If you take the time to kind of look around, you'll find that there's a lot of support for your online students. Or that's a great conversation starter with your administration that needs to be buttoned up a little bit. And finally, the course should be accessible and usable to all of your learners. So I said we were going to talk a lot about alignment, and so let's unpack this a little bit more. And I borrowed this diagram here, this kind of Parthenon foundational wall, to explain to you what Quality Matters means when they talk about alignment. And at the bottom of this screen, you'll see that at the bottom of the foundation is the learning objectives. Everything is built off of those learning objectives. Even though it's general standard number 2, you really need to start with good learning objectives. And then at the top, you'll see there's the assessments. The assessments are going to be those measurements of how you know the students obtained your learning objectives. So they definitely need to be connected and work together. And so then there's a couple other general standards that fit into this alignment theme. And they're the instructional materials, any of the course activities, and then any of the course tools or technologies that you choose. Again, to be a quality course, these all need to align with each other. So let's talk about this rubric that I've been describing to you. And I taken a picture of what it actually looks like. And if you come to the Applying the Quality Matters rubric training, you'll actually get a copy of the entire rubric here. I'm putting it in front of my webcam so you can see it. But we also have a sort of a modified shortened version of that I will send out to everyone at the conclusion of this workshop, along with our survey we always send out. But you can see it's really detailed. Each of the general standards also contains several of these specific review standards. And there's a point value to each of these review standards, and 3 points actually indicates that it's an essential standard. So that's a standard that must be met in order to kind of move forward in the review. So if you're preparing for a review, you know, you kind of want to address those 3 pointers first. And then another great thing about the rubric is that it contains these annotations, really specific details about what you would look for in a course that would help you meet these standards. So really great tool to be using. And I'm kind of using my arrows here to repoint out the things that are important in using the rubric. So I talked about the 3 points. Let me break it down for you in a little bit more detail. There are 21 of those 3-point essential standards. There's 14 2 points, which are considered very important, and then 8 of them are considered important. So I usually get a bit of a chuckle at this point because there's nothing that's unimportant, and that's really true. But what Quality Matters is looking for is, again, that 85, that B plus, better than average standard. So if at least 85% of these points are met, then the course is considered that it's met standards. So there might be a few of these important or very important standards that you don't meet, but it's still considered a quality course. And what may make you not meet a standard? Well, in some cases, one of the standards, the important standards, is that students have a link to the privacy policy of some sort of technology. Well, if you're not using any external technology, you're not going to have a link to a privacy standard. And so it's okay that you haven't kind of earned that point. Each standard is also looked at by the reviewer as meeting an 85% standard. So as we go through the standards, I think that will become a little bit more clear, and I will give you some examples sort of specific to the standard itself. So here's the first one. General standard number 1 has to do with the course overview and the introduction. And that's something that we're all really feeling right now because our semesters are starting, and the thing that's on our mind is, you know, what's going to happen when the students first get into the course. So the first specific review standard is that the instructions make clear how to get started and where to find various course components. So share some ideas in the text chat area. What are some ideas that you have that will help make it clear to your students how to get started? Create a week 1 folder, good suggestion. Week 1 definitely, it just gives them that indicator that here's where to start. Organize by module. Organization is a great suggestion. Melly says, I created a screencast video that walked my students through the online platform, showed them where to find everything, and walked them through the syllabus and schedule. That is a great idea. Lacey created an infographic on how to get started and the general course flow with a Getting Started tab. These are all really good suggestions. And it's all makes sense to me. Jeff, I'd even say we have done a week 0 folder, and so if you get to that point and you can open up the course a little bit earlier, it allows the students to kind of practice their navigation a little bit through the course before that start of semester. So that's just a tip if you want to try it. And of course, everyone else's ideas, I hope you're willing to take credit for them and let others try it. Now, the next one, students then know how to get started. The next one suggests that students are introduced to the purpose and structure of the course. I think Melanie's and Lacey's get to that idea of the structure a little bit. How about the purpose? Send out an announcement prior to the first day of class indicating where to find tabs and functioning. I think we're going back into the structure. I think that's a great idea. Discussed in the screencast. Yes, screencast is a great tool, even just kind of navigating the students through. The purpose is in my welcome tab, an email I sent out. Welcome email. It looks like Kenny might have some slow speed. Your internet might be catching up, hopefully. I turned off my webcam just for that purpose. Things might speed up, but let's get back to the purpose of the course. And yes, I think the idea behind it is just really state the purpose of the course. It might be a purpose of where it's sequenced in a program or even skills that they may develop, but just kind of put it out there. Let them know what the purpose is. So really, those are just a couple of the standards on getting started, but I think those are the 2 essential ones. So that's what you want to look for. You can kind of add that to your checklist right now. I'm going to go back and check my online course and make sure that I provided them with some ways to get started. Maybe others have inspired you to kind of create a screencast or a video or something like that. And then the second thing is, have I really told them what the purpose of the course is? So we're already to standard number 2. This particular workshop goes really fast and is, again, just giving you an introduction. If something kind of jumps out at you, we have a full hour for each of these individual objectives. And so we really unpack it even more. But course objectives, I said course objectives are those foundational pieces that everything is really connected to. And in some cases, our course learning objectives have been mandated by our department or have been written for us. And so we're kind of just living with them, but they really should describe outcomes that are measurable. And if you find that they are not measurable, maybe that's a conversation you can have with your department. Again, if you don't have that option to sort of rewrite your own, and let them know that Quality Matters, a nationally recognized research-based institution, says that learning objectives should be measurable. But normally a course developer or an online instructor will have the ability to create module level objectives. Those weekly units, maybe they're defined by weeks or topics. If you can write module level objectives, you want to make sure again that they do align with those course level objectives, but maybe this is where you can use some vocabulary where they're measurable in some ways. I like to start learning objectives with actionable verbs. If there's verbs in there, you can see that action taking place in the course. And then you know that you can measure them in some ways. For instance, using the word describe instead of using the word understand, because it's really hard to be able to measure if a student understands something. So my down and dirty of writing learning objectives and making sure they're measurable is to start with those action verbs. The next thing that they're looking for, so how are you going to measure these learning objectives? You're going to measure them through assessments. And so what Quality Matters is looking for when reviewing an online course is that the assessments are measuring the learning objectives. So if the learning objective, again, is to describe or list something, you need to come up with an assessment that will allow them to sort of have those behaviors demonstrated for you. The next one, the grading policy. Make sure your grading policy is clearly stated. It might be something that you already have in your syllabus, but let them know, you know, your late work policies and any other how grades are kind of weighted across your course. Add them to your syllabus. I would also recommend that you add them to, somewhere maybe in your course information area. We all know that students will briefly peruse the syllabus at the beginning of the course, and that's sort of the last time they open it. So anytime you can provide a different opportunity for your students to see the grading policy, that's going to really help them, and it's going to make it, again, a more quality course. Be specific and descriptive with your criteria for how you will evaluate your students' work. We're giving a lot of specific descriptive criteria in this rubric for how your online course would be evaluated for quality. What are some ways that you can let your students know how you're going to evaluate the quality of their work? Go ahead, share some ideas in the text chat area. Oh, I usually get folks with this one. How about using a rubric? If you use a grading rubric, that is a great way that course reviewers can know that you've provided some specific and descriptive criteria for how you're going to evaluate their work. And again, in the assessments webinar I give you lots of good ideas on grading and feedback with your students in an online course. Melanie says that chat isn't updating. I can't see posts. Let me add one here. The post had slowed down a little bit. Maybe you just weren't seeing any because nobody was posting. And hopefully you could see that one. I wonder if we're all experiencing a little bit of bandwidth congestion here, traffic here a little bit. So bear with me. We will definitely have just got it. Yes, it is moving slow. We will have a recording of this that I'll send you out afterwards so everyone can kind of go back And if the text is working slow, I will chime in with more ideas of ideas that I have and that I've really heard from faculty over the years. But let's move on to general standard number 4, and that is instructional materials. So the instructional materials could be textbooks, journal articles, videos you find, any sort of material that contribute to the achievement of those stated learning objectives, both at the course level and the module level. It could be your recordings, anything that you are providing your students as instructional materials. So again, those materials need to contribute to the objectives. So the reviewers are going to look for that connection, and any way you can make those connections for the reviewer and for your students will really help make it a quality course. So if there's a particular reading that you want the students to know, let them know how that connects to a learning objective or an assessment. And it may be just a simple statement with, read this article, it will help you answer the discussion board prompt. And it's just creating those connections for your students. And they also understand that it's not busy work, that there's a real meaning behind these instructional materials. As you're doing all these alignment activities, you may find some gaps or some disconnects. And what you need to look for in that case is this instructional material necessary, or is it one I've just been using for a long time and maybe it's time to kind of cycle it out? Or, no, I really think this instructional material is important and maybe you need to add a learning objective because you now realize that, oh, that learning objective was missing. So these alignment activities are really important. The other thing that Quality Matters is really looking for with instructional materials is that purpose. And I almost said it a couple times, but I was kind of holding off when I was describing it. Why is this important to the learners? And it also needs to be carefully explained to them of how it fits into their overall learning in the course. So maybe you're explaining why you chose the textbook, for instance, why this textbook was the right one for the course. So just remember to make sure those materials align with the learning objectives and you've given them the purpose for them. Learner interaction and engagement. We want to make sure any activity that the students do in the course is, again, promoting those learning objectives and that it also supports active learning. Online learning can get a bad rap about being isolating and passive, so we want to make sure that the activities we design in the course are this sort of active learning. And because everyone was telling me that the text chat was working sort of slow and we're kind of getting into the last 15 minutes or so, I'll share some ideas about how learning activities can support interaction, and discussion boards are a really good one that allows students to interact with each other. It definitely has more kind of action than, you know, just reading an article or just watching a lecture. Anytime that they can kind of do something. So it could be maybe they're creating a video themselves. We talked about you creating a video, but maybe you could create a video or your students could create a video or an infographic. And that's kind of really having them analyze and synthesize and work with the content that you're giving them. So those are some ideas that you can kind of beef up that course a little bit and make it more active for your students. The last one here is that let the students know what your interaction with the course is going to be. And by that, I mean how you're going to respond, at what time and what kind of feedback on assignments. So how often do you plan on responding to questions in the discussion boards? When is your timing for getting back to students if they email you? How soon can they expect grading to be done on any assignment? And there's not really a set answer for that, except for it should be early and often. And you can kind of define your own early and often, but one of the things I like to say is that a typical 16-week semester, you might want to promise that you're going to have assignments graded within a week. If it's an accelerated course, you're going to have to kind of move that up, and maybe it's getting back to students within just a couple of days. The other thing is if you're going to give your students feedback on a draft for something, make sure they get that feedback back before they actually have to do the next iteration of the assignment. And again, just let them know what your plan is for that. Number 6 is course technology. So any course technology that you choose, again, make sure it supports the learning objectives. Don't choose a technology because you heard it was the thing to use. I like using screencast, that was mentioned earlier in the course, but if a screencast really doesn't kind of lend itself, then don't use it. Use the technology that makes sense to your learning objectives. But you could be using technology to support that engagement between the students. So if you never use a action verb that says discuss, you still may use a discussion forum because you want the students to start talking to each other and interacting with each other. And so in that case, you would use a tool to foster that interaction. Learner support is general standard number 7. And so that's providing the students with support that might be more instinctual for us in a face-to-face course, but it's important to add it to your online course. So if students need technical support that such as what it says here, let them know how to access that technical support. Let them know how to reach out to the service desk through email or phone call and the hours that they are available. First of all, that will give them some great support and alleviate some of that technology anxiety they have, but also they won't be asking you about it, and you can really focus in on the content. And then make sure that the students have a link, or you articulate any institutional accessibility policies or services. And here at NIU, that really can be something that you add to your syllabus with our accessibility policy statement, but also you can easily add a link to our Disability Resource Center. That's one of the standards that I love, that is just so easy to meet that standard by just adding a link to the Disability Resource Center. The final general standard is on accessibility and usability, and it's all about making sure that the course navigation facilitates ease of use for your students. And that is, navigation is something that always seems to be really intuitive in our minds. We know where we put everything in the course, so we know how to find it, and that's a really good time to have somebody else look at the course to see if the navigation kind of makes sense to them. Sometimes I get the statement that, you know, why should we make it so easy on them? Are we spoon feeding them? And the idea is that if they get bogged down in the navigation or using the technology, it kind of bogs them down to be able to really engage in what we want them to, and that's learning the content and being able to be successful in the course. So navigation is a good thing to, again, just allow the students to make it easy to move around the course and find that content and interact with each other rather than spending a lot of time sort of looking for things. And then finally, the course uses accessible technologies and provides guidance on how to obtain accommodation. And we talked about that in the last one, in making sure that we gave students support with knowing how to access the Disability Resource Center here at NIU, but it's also really important that all of your content is accessible. All of the videos that you provide for your students have assistive technology incorporated to them. All of the images that you share has image descriptions. You're just employing all of those accessible technologies as much as possible. So that's a really important one, especially here at NIU, where we are a state institution, and this is actually mandated by the law. So this is not a university policy as much as it is a legal requirement that our technologies we use and our course is completely accessible. So those are the 8 general standards. Again, they're sort of kind of just listed out in simple language here to remind you what they were. But if you are interested in learning more, again, we have an entire series on each of these quality standards broken into more detail with some real practical examples of how you can add them into your course. The Applying the Quality Matters rubric training that I mentioned to for faculty instructors at NIU is coming up on September 15th. Again, if you sign up for that, you can get the entire 43-page rubric here for you to put on your desktop when you're designing courses and refer to. And you can register for that by going to facdev.niu.edu/2017-0915 APPQMR. Let me put that into the text chat area so you can find that link. And APPQMR, saying that 3 times fast is near impossible, but it stands for Applying the Quality Matters rubric. You can also look at their website to find out more information, especially for those folks that are coming in from different institutions. If you'd like to know more about it and how to have it at your university, that is the link there, www.qmprogram.org. Again, this is my contact information. My name is Tracy Miller, and my email is tracy.miller@niu.edu. Thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. You're welcome, Tony. You're welcome, Tony.